For tonight, everyone on the call, to kick things off officially, thank you for coming out and joining us as you do. Tonight we are joined by alumni member Tori Romano from C10, cohort 10 that would be. She has a very storied past. No, I'm kidding. She's actually done some very interesting things, and she's going to be sharing that with us tonight. Before we kick things off officially, I do want to do our land acknowledgement, acknowledging that we are on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and specifically the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations, and continue to keep this in mind as we move forward in making reconciliation efforts and the way we can collaborate and transform our lives and the space that we live in and play and work and do very interesting things. And anyway, tonight, Tori, as an alumni member, doing these interesting things that I spoke of, is about to share her story and a bit of a deck with us, and then we'll have some Q&A time, I'm sure. If there's questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to use the chat. I'll monitor that, and we'll go from there. But anyway, let's give a virtual welcome to Tori. Tori, thank you for coming out. Virtual drink tickets coming your way right now, and real ones when we get back to doing live events. But anyway, Tori, floor is yours.
Cool. Thanks so much, Dennis. And really nice to see Dave, Josh. I saw Kristen typing in there. I'm really excited to be here. I won't get too much into my intro here, but as you'll notice, I have a lot of GIFs and a lot of visuals because I do have a storied past, but not in the way Dennis may have alluded to, but I do consider myself a storyteller at heart. So bear with me here as we go through my story here. So what will we be talking about? It wasn't very long that I was in your guys' position that you are right now, kind of going through the courses, having the mentorship, faculty, figuring things out, and having guest speakers. And I know in my cohort, a lot of speakers came in and they had these awesome projects and products and businesses. And I don't necessarily have projects or products or things to any wares to sell you, but I do have a hero's journey, as all of us do, that I'd love to share with you all. And this is also a callback to George's film class, but I will ask everyone to not mention this to George because it is not exactly to a T how the hero's journey is. It's more of just a guidepost that I'm using to tell my story. So basically, we're going to just go through, calls to adventure, refusal, and huge asterisks here, multiple refusals of the call, because we are all human here, mentors, transformation challenges, and then return in mostly that order. But let's kick it off. So, call to adventure. This presentation really could be, okay, I went to school, went to the CDM, worked, now I'm here. Thanks for coming out to my conversation. Do you have any questions? But of course, life is not linear and is very much up and down, as this chart would suggest. So I'll just take you through kind of, life a little bit before the CDM career and where I'm at now. And I will note that this is, as everyone's life is, always a work in progress and as things go on. So there's always things to learn and to grow from. So this is not comprehensive or final or in any regard. So started the journey, leaving home very quickly. So from a very small town in BC, about 5,000 people, was really a big deal to go to school for me. And I wanted to find the right academic institution to pursue academics, as you would. And so I landed on Vancouver, which was a huge transition, especially going up to Burnaby Mountain. It was a lot more people than I was used to, a lot of things going on. But going into SFU, I actually originally went in for sciences. And although I do really like science, I found a passion for communications and sociology. So working in digital media and technology, and then also people and working with people and learning about different cultures. And so it was just a perfect marriage in that joint marriage of education. So kind of got an early sort of a hurdle early on of what do I want to do, but luckily landed on it pretty quickly. And went through my undergrad, things are going great. And then of course, you get to the end of your undergrad and you go, okay, what now? What do I want to do? And everybody starts asking you, like literally, it feels like everyone you come across, even if they don't know you, they ask you what you're going to do. So I started looking around and came across the CDM actually, and really loved the program, thought it was fantastic, all these awesome projects and mentors, all these awesome things. And that was a moment for me where it was like, I don't know, do I stack up to the people that are going into this program? We have programmers, we have people who have lived, 1, 2, 3 careers. It just seemed like, okay, is this right for me? As I'm sure, maybe some of you felt when you were applying, but by the grace of the good people in my life and support that I had, I applied, and luckily and very excitedly was accepted, as Dennis mentioned, for cohort 10. And going into the cohort, something that came up for me was how do I want to, or what do I want to be pursuing after this? What are my intentions going into the program? And it actually came out in my CDM interview where Patrick had said, what industry you want to work in? And it was almost like the answer that came out was as shocking to them as it was to me, but I was like, film, like it's just film. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe animation, but like film specifically, like storytelling, all this, I'm super jazzed about it. So going into the CDM, of course, you do lots of cool things, lots of industry projects, client projects, journaling, dancing sometimes if that is warranted for the project. But really learned so much. And honestly, that could be a presentation in itself of all of the things that I learned. And, having improv as a class, like that's something that was super transformative. Or, Dave's class with game design and learning how to do a game design manual. Like all of these things were incredible and all very, very much led to my professional self is where I am today. And of course, a huge part of the CDM is the internship. And if this wasn't Jim Carrey, this was Tori circa 2016 of what am I going to do? And I know some of you are probably maybe feeling this way going and, finishing your last semester, thinking about the internship. It's never too late to start thinking about it. And Dennis can probably attest to when I started talking to him about it, which was probably December. So, as it would be, it's I'm very grateful that the faculty and everyone at CDM pushed me to go into project management role because I'm very particular and schedule-wise and organized and really like things to go a particular way. So that was also a big learning situation in this regard. But the internship. So despite my best efforts, just the reality of how things would be, I didn't fully land on where I would want to go. And kind of going back to the particular mindset, I had a very specific idea of what I wanted. And for my sake, didn't really budge on it. I started seeing my peers, accepting these awesome opportunities, aligning themselves, going in for contracts, full-time, like it just felt like, I was feeling a little bit behind. And this was all my own doing, really. I was really had, beeline in my mind of what I wanted to do and wasn't really open to it. But after talking with folks like Dave and Dennis and everyone, it helped me to realize just to maybe open up my mind and have a different perspective. And so the Spark Animation Festival is happening. And I thought, okay, animation, nice, but there's VFX. So I'm going to go because I want to work in film, remember? So, and in the spirit of doing something new, rather than sitting at home applying for jobs online, like 10 jobs a day, seriously, not even exaggerating. And at that point, how much effort and actual, authenticity can you put into a cover letter when you're doing 10 different cover letters a day? You kind of drive yourself mad a little bit. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do something new. I researched the festival. I saw that there was a big company going to be there. And being the project manager I brought one paper resume to give to them, and then another one in case that one got wrecked. And I was just going to talk to one company. So I went in, long story short, the company that I wanted to talk to was preoccupied with a group of people. And I looked around and, everybody's sort of packing up. And I see this one booth sort of at the end of the room. I go, okay, no one's really talking to them, but maybe this is an opportunity for me to practice networking. Maybe it's an opportunity, just to practice those sort of skills. So I go over and, I'm very polite and talking and they're, and I'm, politely, yes, okay. And I'm looking at the other booth and I'm like, okay, I got to go over there and do my thing. And so, thank you for your time. And they go, oh, do you want to hand in a resume? And I was like, sure. Like I have to, I'll give you one. Anyway, I drop my resume off, go to the other booth. and I'm psyched about the other booth, even though they didn't even look at me. They basically like grabbed the resume, walked out, and I was like, yes, it's gonna happen. So a couple of days later, I get an email from this company of the first booth, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cute. That's nice for them to reach out, of course. And they say, okay, well, let's set up an interview. And I go, okay, yeah, it's going to be great practice. I look into the company. I'm like, this is awesome. This looks super cool. Like, I should have gave them, I'm grateful that I dropped my resume off. I go into the interview. I think this is awesome. It goes really well. They send me an email 2 days later. So this is all within a week that say, hey, we think you're great. We want to pay for your flight. We want to pay for your accommodation. Can you move to Montreal in 2 weeks? So this is the first big hurdle. I go, okay, great. But as y'all will remember, moving from small town BC to bigger town BC was a big deal for me. So now to move across the entire country, away from friends, family, everything I knew, it was very scary. But given that it was November and that was the internship semester and needing to kind of get that credit and also just trying to keep my mind open, keep myself open to opportunities, I said, bienvenue à Montréal. So I thought, okay, I'm going to come here. I'm going to work here for this contract. I'm just gonna stay, because it was a contract for, I think, 6 months, 4 months. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go there. I'll just do my thing. I'll come back, whatever. So 3.5 years later, I'm still in Montreal. I got to work on a lot of really cool movies. I worked at Cinesight, Real Effects. Cinesight, I worked on No Malone. I worked on The Star. I worked on Riverdance Fearless, Dog Gone Trouble. And then at Real Effects, I worked on No Malone, or Ugly Dolls and Rumble. So a lot of projects in a very short amount of time. I learned a lot that I'll go over a little bit more in detail in a little bit, but essentially it was a great learning experience, and I got to meet some really passionate and creative folks, and it was truly a great opportunity. But of course, 7 films in 3 years is a lot of work to do. And I encountered something that I wasn't familiar with, which is our good friend burnout, which is a reality. It's something that happens to people, and it's something that I was very unaware of. And without the sort of resources and knowledge of what is, like, how do I deal with this and, navigating this, I was like, okay, it's time to do something different. So I want to stay in the creative space. I want to keep doing project management, but I need to take a step back from the animation world because it's a bit much right now. So I thought, okay, I started looking around. Is there something I can do that kind of fits all of these boxes that I'm trying to accomplish? Cue Just for Laughs. So this opportunity came up and I thought, hey, this is awesome. Most people know Montreal, but one of the pinnacle things in Montreal is Just for Laughs. You're like, I consider myself a comedic, connoisseur, if that is a real thing. Like, maybe this would be a cool environment to be in. I thought it was awesome. So I started working as an operations coordinator for the festival for 2020 in the fall. And we had talked about, all the comedic acts that were going to come in. I was calling places and locations. It was just going to be great. Like, I had been living in Montreal, attended the festival as a consumer of the content, but I was like, all right, I'm going to be part of this now, the production side. I was the right-hand person for the general manager, like, let's do it. And of course, the festival went off without a hitch, and we were all able to celebrate collectively together in a big group. Just kidding. This was the pandemic, 2020. So I often refer to this very lovingly, this moment in my career, as the biggest Just for Laugh gig of all time, that I worked there for 2 months before I was laid off. So cue the next big stage of professional development is transformation, which happens honestly minusculely and throughout time, but sometimes there's just those big moments of like, all right, this is big transformation. So this is me going from having burnout to being like, I need a change, to now being forced not to be able to work, which was completely new to me. And I'm sure Dave and Dennis can attest to that being a very weird situation for me. Kind of find myself being like, well, what do I do? Like, all I'm used to is like grinding, working hard, like 6 days a week. Like, it was a really difficult moment for me, but I figured, leading up until this point, keeping my mind open to opportunities as they present themselves might serve me well. So for 4 months in 2020, and I recognize, not everybody was in different situations and continues to be, but speaking on for my story, what I did was I actually meditated for the first time. I puzzled. I really just came back home to myself, tapped into my creative side, created content, explored things that I was grateful to be able to kind of have this pause and reflection. I started writing again. There's a lot of opportunity that I found in this very devastating and difficult time, and I'm grateful that I was able to see a little bit of the light in that regard. But as I'm sure everyone can relate to, the pandemic was really difficult. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was difficult, just more so being away from family and friends. And you can really feel that distance when you're not able to see anyone, but especially when you're not living near your family. So I said, all right, time to hit the road. So a couple of friends and I actually did drive across Canada and came to Alberta to a lovely Rocky Mountain house, which I would be surprised if anyone knows where that is. Where my mom and her partner have a farm. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to Alberta, get a little closer to home, see what happens. So this was my big return, going back to the journey, hero's journey. So coming back west without a job offer is also very scary. You kind of have your life, and I did build a life there, and to come back and still be, looking for jobs, figuring that out, thinking like a lot of emotions go into it, but I tried to remain optimistic and, again, keep my eyes open for opportunity. So I thought, I get here, okay, I don't know what the creative landscape is in Calgary, what's going on here in creative industries and film, what can I do? And I came across a team assistant job for the Film Commission and for permitting. So cue the second dilemma. I see this job and I think, this is a great, this is one of very few jobs that are available at the moment. But I thought, okay, this is an admin job. I haven't done that before. I'm not familiar with the Film Commission. I don't know anything about permitting. Like, what am I going to do with this now? And so I did the interview, and I loved the team. The team was fantastic. Like, we were already bantering before the interview even began. It was just a really good vibe, really good culture, and I really talk to myself once I got the job of, kind of, even though this was maybe a different level of job that I had wanted, it was an opportunity nonetheless. So welcome to Calgary. This was also something, this is a side note conversation. This is not something I would have ever saw for myself ever, because as a, diehard BC person, I was like BC all the way. And BC Alberta has a rivalry for whatever reason. But I put my rivalries aside and I dove in to Calgary economic development. So in the team assistant role, I just thought, okay, I'm just going to absorb everything that's happening in the tech ecosystem, the film ecosystem, everything that's within creative industries. I'm just going to be a sponge for these 2 months, figure out what's going on, and then I'll, network, I'll connect with people, I'll get involved, and just really use this as sort of a launch pad to the next part of my career outside of this company. But to my surprise, as life sort of happens, when we're not, what's the saying? Life happens when you're too busy living, or, you know what I'm trying to say. But essentially, I was just living along and allowing it to kind of progress along. And that's when I really found out that one of the women on the creative industries team was taking a maternity leave. And as life again would have it, this role was for a interactive digital media sector as a business development manager. So I go, isn't this interesting? Full circle back to my digital media roots and business management, although a bit different, it's still in line and transferable with production. So I thought, I had to have a chuckle at myself there for a minute, because again, life happens when you just let it happen. So over the course of the maternity leave, again, immerse myself into the IDM sector, That includes gaming, immersive tech at the time, and digital media marketing. So just understanding the whole landscape, connecting with post-secondaries, talking with startups, scale-ups, just really diving in and making myself known in the community. So throughout the maternity leave, I helped revamp our website. I have put out an RFP, which is a request for proposal to develop a strategy for the province of Alberta and collaborating with Edmonton partners to develop the esports ecosystem, as well as the animation and VFX ecosystem. And side note, I can tell you every time I go into those conversations, I am like so eager about it because that is my bread and butter. And I'm really excited to see that sector developing in Alberta. But just really leaning into it. Speaking about AR, VR, which interestingly also Tim Wong, who's the VP of Solutions at Unity, works with Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson was a guest speaker at the CDM when I was there. So it is a very small world.
I'm going to give you a breather here because it's like, I know what it is to go on for a while. I don't know if you have a sip of water near you or otherwise, but I remember when you were going that route and you were looking at this opportunity and we were chatting about business development and, you know, all the opportunities. And I just, you're a unicorn to me in the MDM world because not too many students embrace this path. So you're speaking biz dev to biz dev here. So it's full respect. And what I really like about your story there too is that, you know, you speak to the, you know, that openness or it just, you know, moving from small town to a big town, that's one thing. To move across the country, a whole other thing. A second language part of a country, you know, all of these things you took on with a level of uncertainty and, you know, the just for laughs, you know, having the laugh on you in your life. I mean, that's kind of an interesting moment. But I mean, going with the flow a little bit and being open to the opportunities, all of these things can be instrumental in your success. Like, and I'm saying that universally for everyone on this call. Like it's, you know, and you're right. Not everyone's path is just a straight line. And but anyway, I just wanted to give you a little breather, a little sip of water, and just say that I'm just I love hearing this story because you are truly a unicorn. And you know, I also like to, you know, the Angela Y'all connection and the storytelling. Like she's went back to telling stories as well. But anyway, back to you, Tori. That's my interruption. You've had your sip of water. Just proud of you.
Thanks, Dennis. Yes, I needed that water, and I hope I'm not talking too quickly. I'm just very excited. So, but yeah, so doing all these really cool things, the Game Business Success Series, which is a flagship event for IDM, you know, continuing that on, and that is a really awesome webinar series that we host for gaming veterans in the community across Canada and the States. They come on, they do 3 webinar talks, and then we give companies and studios opportunities for one-on-one mentorship for their game development or their studio development or both. So it's just about fostering that ecosystem and continuing to support people working in the creative industry spaces. So although it was just a maternity leave, you know, some people have the mindset of like, oh, this contract is for this amount of time, I'll put in this much effort. That's not how I operate. It was like, this is what I want to see done with this sector. This is what I can do in this amount of time and more, and set it up for success after the role when I leave it. And to my surprise, very recently, I get choked up with this. They liked me. So they kept me around. Sorry. I was like, Tori, you can get through this without getting emotional. But no, it was very cool. And this is very recent news. So what's next? I don't know. That's the thing. Thanks, Dennis. The heart is making me more emotional. No, but truly, what is next? It doesn't, if anything, you know, if you've taken away anything from this very, you know, snippet of my life and in my career, it's that things will just come up as they're meant to. And that, you know, you set goals and things that you want to do, but in the end, sometimes life goes, no, you're going this way or you're going this way. And I know this can really feel like when you're in the position of like, what happens next? What am I doing next? It can really feel like, okay. You might have to just get to that point and experience that as you go, but take it from someone who is very like dead set on like, I have to organize everything, to look at my career trajectory and know that I did not organize everything. And I honestly just, as Dennis said, went with the flow. It's turned out a lot better than had I had those expectations. So keep a curious mind, stay open. And of course I had to put a Star Wars quote in here. I don't know why. I think it's a CDM thing. And sorry, I just lost myself here. Okay. And then the next part here is just some before I get into the Q&A and etc., there's just some high level lessons, challenges and lessons learned. So again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. We kind of just went through it, but CDM internship, expecting something to present itself in a certain way, but really it's just about expecting the unexpected, keeping an open mind, exploring new ways to approach the problem. If there's anything that CDM teaches you, it's really how to pivot, how to adjust, how to be agile, how to make things work as they come along. So lean on your mentors and lean on your network. They're your advocates for sure. Cinesite, very briefly, a quick story. When I got there as a production assistant, I was there in the role for a few months and I was just a full sponge. Like I was in every single dailies rooms that I could be. I was interacting with everybody that I could be. And I basically understood the coordinator role before I was even done 2 months in the PA role. And that's not to brag at all. That's more of that was my pace. That was the pace that I wanted to go at. And everyone around me had said, be a production assistant for a year. And I went, that's not going to work for me. Like I will get bored. I need to move on. I need to be progressing for me. So run your own race, follow your own path, and don't let the outside judgments or suggestions kind of affect you deeply. Like hear people out, listen, but don't feel like you have to be guided by that. At Real Effects, burnout. With that, just know your limits. Practice your healthy boundaries for you. When you're healthy personally, that's healthy across all aspects of life, professionally. Seek help if you need it. At the moment for myself, I'm not too proud to admit I was too proud. It was really a moment of like, this is new to me. There's a lot of feelings that go around with it. And I'm not an expert in this, but I knew that I needed the time for my body to recoup and to balance and align. And that's all you can really do is listen to yourself. Just for laughs, other than it being the greatest gig of all time, sometimes if you feel disappointed and a little lost when things don't work out, try something else. Don't lose your creative problem-solving spirit and make the most of every situation. I know that sounds like very hokey advice or suggestions, but truly, like, again, at the CDM, it was like, okay, we tried this, it didn't work, and then you move on. It's about failing fast and moving forward. So it's kind of a balance of understanding when you need that break to recoup, but then also not giving up, keep pushing. And that's the same goes for rejections from jobs. That could again be a whole presentation about how do you work through rejections from jobs, but just because one door doesn't open, there are several other doors. And then CED, the highlight, I've learned tons of things, of course, at all of these locations, but just these sort of working at a level that you're not too used to. Maybe you're a producer in live action, but you go to animation and now you're a coordinator. If it's a different industry, it's just understanding that there's no small roles. So if you're presented with an opportunity, learn everything you can about it and then master it. Even the things that you think you're a master of, you can always master it further. So just keep kind of striving to understand all that you can. And of course, huge shout out to the mentors of my early stage at the CDM and also Liesel at SFU. Truly, I could go through one by one and say, words of wisdom and advice that every single person here has given me, but that would, again, take a long time. But I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to be at the CDM and knowing that it is such a family and a community that, even however many years later, I can reach out to Dennis or Dave or anybody and just say, hey, let's connect. So it really is a CDM family, and it's all about helping each other, which leads me into how can I help you? There are lots of really cool things happening in Calgary. There's super cool tech jobs that have come in here. Benevity, they focus on, they're a unicorn. They're a self-made unicorn here in Calgary, for instance, and they focus on social wellness, community, charity work, donation work through technology. That's something that's happening here. We have Platform Innovation Center. We have lots of really awesome things in the ecosystem, and we're only growing weekly, daily, weekly, monthly. So there's a lot of really cool tech things happening here as you sort of set your sights on the internship. I definitely can be someone if you want to reach out to, or you feel free to reach out for yourself. It's just about making you aware that, you might be feeling the pressure of, okay, I know someone who's going to Denmark to work on this game studio, but like there are lots of opportunities that are around you, nearby. Like just keep your mind open for places where you might want to go.
I want to jump in with a Calgary note for everyone too. So it's, as much as Tori spoke to the rivalries between BC and Alberta, being open to these opportunities adds an interest factor to your life, and it's we're proud of you wherever you end up. And it's like, so, and I'm not from BC, so I can say this, I guess, maybe without the BC slant, because I'm an Ontario export that went to BC. So I do think that, you got a life, you have some adventure and opportunity in Calgary. Check it out. I mean, it's, Tori spent some time in Montreal, turned out to be 3 years. I thought I was doing a short visit to BC. I've been here for 20. So, but anyway, that's and Calgary, I think it's an affordable place. I mean, I'm not trying to throw BC under the bus here with our housing costs, but it's for some, Alberta's not a bad place to be. So I'm just giving you a little note of endorsement for Calgary, and yeah, hopefully you'll see some students that want to explore that, and I appreciate you making the offer of connecting with them too. So
yeah. Absolutely. And even in my capacity at CED or just an alumni with the CD, I'm always here to answer any questions or help or, anything like that. We're pretty well connected in the community, and our focus is on talent and how we can sort of build our talent base here. And I mean, one of the big draws for me coming to Alberta too was the mountains. And, everybody says, oh yeah, you can go to the mountains within an hour, come back, like there's all this promotional marketing. But when you truly, like I have in the past couple of years, like gone to work and then gone to the mountains and then come home, you're like, okay, this is a completely different way of life. So if you're into stuff like that, and even just the cool communities here, it's definitely worth checking out. And then the last thing I'll say here is, if you want to, from game devs specifically, we do have our Twitch channel. We have Calgary Game Developers Association. They're really nice communities of people who are just looking to help each other out. It's a lot of like the CGDA, for instance, they just got funding to do arcade terminals, like the arcade gaming, and they're going to set those up all over town with local games. Like that's what they're doing. It's all about promoting each other, supporting them through their game development efforts. And then, of course, the Game Business Success Series, we come in and support through mentorship. So in my business development role, I know I didn't get into a lot exactly what I do, but it is a lot of stakeholder engagements and support at individual, business, startup, anchor, scale, like all sizes of companies. So that's really the bread and butter of that. So I will say thank you. And of course, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email at this very long email address. I do not know why they didn't do @ced.com, but here we are. It's just T Romano, Calgary Economic Development. And now Q&A for anybody who might have questions.
Well, thank you, Tori, right out of the gate there. That was awesome. And you did a fantastic run. Without speaking too fast, you covered a lot. And I did post your LinkedIn bio in the chat there. So I may have jumped the gun a little bit there, but I was hoping you'd make that offer. And but yeah, on the Q&A side, I'm definitely anybody in the cohort, if you want to go on mic or raise your hand, there's lots of ways to putting the question to our guest. She's been where you were at now, and has some insights for the future there. And if it's the floor is yours for a Q's. I have plenty myself, but I'd rather have a question from the audience if anyone's has one. Be brave, or else I'll go to Dave. All right, Dave, question's yours.
You got to find the unmute button. So I think if Tori, so first of all, I have to say this before I forget. My daughter's at work, but Courtney says hi, by the way.
Oh, hi. Tell her I say hi.
I will. So if you had to give like 3 pieces of advice for the C16s now as they head off, they're going to be starting projects free, but they're heading into internships. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you'd want to give them?
Okay. Hopefully people will think of questions as I think of how to respond to this. Okay. 3 key pieces of advice. Honestly, fail fast. Be open to opportunities. And network. Network is actually all 3. I know they try and drive that home at the CDM, and as a student, I was like, yeah, okay, network, sure, I'll like grab a coffee. But the amount of times a networking, I also wasn't like that sassy about it. I just didn't understand the depth and importance of networking. But truly, like, you have a conversation with someone and it leads to, oh, you could be connected with this person. Like, most of my job is just cold outreaching to people, and I can do it because I did that at the CDM. And this has led to some amazing initiatives that have come out of just like a random cold introduction on LinkedIn. So really capitalize on the resources that you have at the CDM and take their word as truth. They are experts.
That's absolutely the right answer, actually. Networking. You read my mind, or not read my mind, but I'm glad you answered it that way. There's been a change now too. I know Dennis was doing internships with you, and I was doing game design with Jason. I'm now doing internships.
And I'm doing game design. No, I'm kidding. We didn't do that.
No, Jason's doing game design now on his own. So I'm carrying that torch. So I'm really glad you said that.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? No. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. So on the biz dev end, so you probably didn't expect you were going to go that route. You wanted to get into film, and now you're doing, this biz dev role. Do you still see it as like a creative outlet? Is that sort of, did it light something, for you as far as, seeing an opportunity that wasn't there, and you seem to be inspired by this? And I'm just trying to get people to think of these peripheral careers to core digital media creative, because it's for me, it's still very creative. And I mean, the people and the agencies, the groups, the initiatives that, it's such a creative process, and it's just not a path that everyone thinks about. So what's your take on biz dev?
Yeah, I mean, so also just coming out of the CDM and wanting to work in film, I was like, I'm going to be a storyboard artist. Like, this was just the direction that I wanted to go. And I was like, I'm going to be an artist. And I remember talking with Jason, because I was like, maybe I'll do like DMP or like background design. And he was like, all right, I don't want to discourage anything. And he was very patient. And he's like, okay, these are the sort of skill sets that you need to, and he showed me matte painting. And I was like, okay, next thing. And I'm like, okay, I want to be a storyboard artist. And Larry was like, okay, this is what a storyboard looks like. I was like, I can't do that. Okay, next thing. Like, it was all valiant effort, I will say, on my part, of really trying and really pushing that, of like, that's what it means to be creative. But it wasn't until I got into production that I realized, oh, this is creative. Like, you are like helping artists. Like, if the production team isn't part of animation, the movie doesn't get done. And my name on that credit still feels as worthwhile and as mentionable as everyone else's on the team, because I was there supporting the team, having a goal, doing all these sorts of things. So it's the same thing with business development. I thought the same thing too, because you think business development, you think people sitting in like classrooms with hats or something, and they're, have the like elbow pads, but I'm reinventing the game. I don't know. No, I am very much working with people who are creative, again, supporting them. And that's just another part of me that's being unlocked, is just helping people. Like, that kind of goes back to my sociology days of just wanting to understand people, understanding different cultures, and that sort of working with people aspect of it. So, when we do the game business series, I get emails, like flooded with emails, honestly, afterwards, of people being like, this was so helpful. This made a difference for me. And that's something that's super fulfilling. And just knowing that you can seek, like, my creative outlets. I'm not artistically inclined, but I might doodle or paint on the side. That doesn't have to be something I pursue for a career. But I guess that's my roundabout way of saying, not sort of putting yourself into a corner, and knowing that working in a creative space is still creative, even though it's a lot of business.
Let me ask you another question. So we talked a little bit about game design. We talked about visual story, George, hero's journey. What about improv? Did that ever factor into your life? This is a Patrick note, I guess, but I'm just...
Yes, 100%.
Improv is useful? Okay.
Yeah, I know. When I got to, as everyone probably similar, you get to the CDM. Is improv still in the first semester?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
You're like, okay, like I'm a master's student. This is serious. And then it's Patrick being like, okay, we're gonna do improv, and you're like, what in the world is this? But improv was super fun, but it also was extremely helpful. And I actually even just did improv like on the side for myself when I was in Montreal and went through the classes there, just because it does make you use a different part of your brain. Like there'd be so many client meetings. Like I'd be talking to, I was fortunate enough to work with the late director who worked on Shrek 2, Kelly Asbury. He was a fantastic director. He was just, picking his brain and understanding how he was moving through sequences and shots. And he was an awesome director. But you being in those situations where I had made kind of a side comment about a call that was made, and he was like, "Oh, Tori, do you not think that we should have done that?" And I was like, "Yes, and we could also think of this." It's like when your inner monologue becomes your outer monologue. I mean, this is a very specific example, but it really is about, when you're in those collaborative situations, it's like, how can you build upon other people's ideas? And also when you see your team member like really struggling with the client, like how can you jump in and kind of support them? So although it's not necessarily the same sort of performative that you learn about at the CDM, that tool I found is really useful.
I like that you brought up the yes and thing too, which is a very Patrick thing to do.
Hey,
I do see a question. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Ugo has a question, but instead of us saying what it is, Ugo, why don't you say it? Because my microphone's not working.
Okay. Hi, Tori.
Hi.
So my question is, what burnt you out the most in the animation industry?
Sorry, what?
Yeah, you said you experienced burnouts.
Burnouts, yes.
Yeah. So what burnt you out the most in the animation industry? What caused that? What do you think caused that?
This is a very good question. When I think about the moment that I was in, it was when I just started in a new role. So I moved very quickly from PA to coordinator. I coordinated on Ugly Dolls, and I'd learned, like, I'm the type of person where it's like, okay, do, okay, I got it. Next thing. And I went to my boss again in a different company and was like, I'm ready for the next thing. So he's like, okay, you're going to be the associate production manager for the animation department for this Paramount animation movie. Does that sound good? And I went, okay. So, part of it was stepping into that new leadership role and being given a team. Like this was the first time that I had people sort of working for me. Like they were looking to me, I was, supervising them. So it was that the team was green. So it was about training every single one of these team members while learning my new job. And this is obviously a very unique situation, but if I were to sort of generalize it, I think it would be just knowing, again, going back to your boundaries of things. So, if you're in a situation where your boss is giving you a lot of workload, it's about kind of communicating with them and saying, hey, I know that I can do this. I'm comfortable in my abilities, but we need to talk about how we can sort of, how we can share responsibilities or how we can talk about streamlining this. Because in that situation, training for people while I was learning a new job, it wasn't conducive to anything because it's like you're juggling all these things. I think also in the animation industry, I know it's changing and so is VFX, but there's this mentality that if you stay until 8 p.m. every night, you care about your job. But if you leave at 5, you hate it and you just want to leave. Like it's a very interesting mentality of like, if you are overworking yourself, then you care. But I was always like, honestly, if I end at 5, I'm like 5:01, see you tomorrow. And it felt really I felt really uncomfortable about doing that. So I started staying longer. I started doing more, finding things to do so I could stay longer, just to sort of, feel like I was answering that call of demand. But that's something that I've learned in CED is that, even on my super busy days, I have to separate and prioritize what needs to get done first. So in that situation, Ugo, it was just a combination of like a bunch of new things and not kind of losing, like stepping out of my balance and not going back to the basics, honestly, at CDM of like prioritizing and understanding how to work through those things. I just when you're in a place of kind of catastrophe or chaoticness, these things go out the window. So, but just listening to yourself. There's many times I look back that I was like, oh, that was probably a moment I could have taken a step back. But yeah, just listening to yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'll watch out for that.
Take care of yourself, Hugo.
Yeah, you too.
That's solid advice right there. So I am going to put it sort of on a closing note here. If anyone has a question, it looks like I have a hand from Simran. So look at that. The last call is getting a few rounds here. Go ahead, Simran. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi, Tori. So like coming from the Masters of Digital Media program and like basically to land into the production assistant role, like it's like foot in the door kind of role for people into the movie industry or entertainment. Like what skill set like did they look into exactly? Were they looking into the specific things, responsibilities, or like previous experiences or skill set? Like how did it go for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, note-taking, huge note-taking for production assistant. It's really, and it's not just about taking, like it's about taking productive notes, I'll say, which is something that I learned at the CDM also, because you know how everyone is about documentation, like you're documenting this and tracking this and adjusting this and making sure, you know, you're going from here to here and understanding. So it was always productively taking notes and documenting, which really supported going into that PA role, because it wasn't just adjust left arm screen or like shot 105. It was like my notes were very poetic. They'd be like, the scene needs to feel more moody and confrontational. So the elbow needs to be adjacent about 90 degrees. Like they was just so detailed to the point where my artists were like, I feel like I don't even have to go to dailies. Like I'll read your notes and understand exactly what needs to get done. And that's also because I'm very particular. And honestly, if I'm being honest, was afraid I was going to miss something. So I just took down everything. But note taking, and when it's productive and it contributes to the overall project, I think people just notice that and they appreciate that's supportive. As an assistant, a production assistant, you're really in that assisting role of like, what does that coordinator need? Does the production manager need anything? I think having initiative and having that sort of sponge mentality is also very helpful, because I just said, okay, what dailies rooms can I go into? Even if it wasn't my department, I just want to learn what's happening. So by the time I got to be a coordinator, I knew the entire production pipeline from like story all the way to compositing, just because I had that eagerness to learn. So the technical, like actual, you know, tangible skills, note taking, but just all of those other soft skills that you learn through the CDM, and I'm sure in your past life what you were doing all contribute. So
yeah, I'm glad you brought up that path too, like on the production assistant to production coordinator too. Like it's because not everyone's also open to that, because in some cases they see it as a junior step or something, but it really is that foot in the door and the ability to go from one production to the next and take that step. And you know, from real effects, he did a 6 months transition to that being the production manager. Like that's you know, that's some hockey stick growth there, but you have to be willing to. There you go, the Canadian reference again, why not? But yeah, it's, you know, I think that willingness again of, you know, contributing where you can, getting your foot in the door, and then, you know, growing with it or exploring those opportunities, like you made it happen. So it's, you know, and you're doing some really cool stuff. But all right, everyone. So I don't know if there's any last question, I'll leave that, just if there's a virtual hand or somebody wants to go on mic, that's cool. But otherwise, I know it's like the home stretch of the term. Like I think we have, I don't know, 3 weeks left. I haven't done the math. There was a time change lately, and my brain is all over the place. So, but anyway,
this is an exciting time. If I want to say one more thing, I'll just say this is an exciting time, and I honestly look back very fondly to CDM if that hasn't come across in this presentation. But it wasn't. I will also say it was not all sunshine and rainbows. It required a lot of personal growth. You know, my first industry project that I worked on, I was like, I don't want to do this, and I was so resistant to it. But in the end, like that was the team that I learned the most with, because I had to work with people that, you know, we were completely different in terms of like how we approach projects and how we approach creativity. So rather than, you know, getting my back up against a wall and going, oh, they don't work like I do, so I can't work here. It was really like, okay, how do I listen and then lead from listening rather than leading from speaking? So just a lot of lessons learned that really have contributed to what I perceive as my success throughout my professional career so far. And I no doubt will be continuing to support my professional endeavors as I go forward too. So.
Awesome. Hey, on that note, Tori, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate the time, the effort, and the videos. Why not? And everyone else, enjoy your evening. Thanks for taking some time out to join us tonight. Tori, especially. I wasn't kidding about the drink tickets when we get back to live events. It's open bar for you. Anyway, but and everyone else, one day you'll be alumni too. We'll be calling on you. So enjoy your evenings. Thank you so much, everyone. Till next time. And Tori, we'll stay in touch.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
You.
Sorry.
Thank you.